Hello, it's African Esquire here with a new video. Before I get into this video, I want to talk briefly about a Facebook group that I started called Pan-African News Press. The purpose of the Facebook group is really to give a platform to people who subscribe to the Pan-Africanist ideology. And if you don't know what the Pan-Africanist ideology is, it's the fact or the idea that all Black people everywhere who are of African descent, whether you are in Africa or whether you are in Latin America, whether you're in America, whether you're in the UK or in Europe, all of us, or in the Caribbean, of course, all of us are connected through a common struggle. And because we're all connected through a common struggle, in order for us as a collective to actually progress, we have to connect with one another, and we have to actually realize that our struggles are interwoven. And so I, as an African in America, cannot be liberated when Africa is in chains. I cannot be exempt from colonialism because I'm in America, because colonialism is happening in Africa. And since they're practicing it there, they're going to practice it everywhere. So that's the idea of Pan-Africanism. And I created this page really out of inspiration from reading Dr. Amos Wilson's book, Black Power. He had discussed the issue of Black media elite, and I know all of you are probably very well familiar with them. You'll see them on CNN, you'll see them on MSNBC. I'm not going to call out any names, but you'll see the liberal talking heads who will go on to the news, and they'll basically be the black face that's going to advocate the liberal cause. And then, of course, you'll have a Black Republican every once in a while. But usually it's a Democrat that you'll see on there, and they're basically the Black Negro whisperer for the Democrats, basically. And they're supposed to internalize and verbalize arguments that the liberals make in a way that appeals to Black consciousness and basically dresses up certain liberal issues as though they're actually addressing our issues. So that, of course, is usually, as Dr. Wilson points out, it's usually done in a way that's reactionary. It's not, doesn't really dissect issues that particularly pertain to the Black community. And when you have these platforms, they're ultimately obviously not going to allow you as a Black talking head to come on their program and say things that would jeopardize their economic future. And so Dr. Wilson said that these institutions of Black elite media cannot adequately represent us, and they will never truly discuss the ideals of Pan-Africanism, which is why if you were to read Essence magazine, or if you were to read Ebony, any of those magazines that are supposed to speak for Black people, it's interesting that they never even discuss things like Black nationalism. Or if they discuss it, it's very surfacey. So they'll say things like, oh, Black businesses and whatnot, but they won't talk about the importance of Black people not depending on white people, but actually turning inside and employing our own people. But because of that, we don't really get fair discourse inside of these circles. But of course, at the end of the day, these magazines, oftentimes, if they're not white owned, and Essence magazine was white owned for a long time, but it just went back to being Black owned recently. But even if they are Black owned, the reality is that these magazines oftentimes are the reason why they're able to be so prominent, and they're able to put out so much information and have such a national viewership, is because these magazines have a lot of corporate sponsorship from white institutions. And obviously, if you're getting money from these institutions, you're going to be very reluctant to discuss things that are essentially revolutionary, that would absolutely disadvantage these institutions. So you never really get discourse. Me personally, I mean, I've went most of my life never really knowing what Pan-Africanism was. I discovered Black nationalism really when I was in college, but I never heard too much discourse on this subject. And because of this issue, I, inspired by Dr. Wilson, created this great page. And the page really isn't for me. It's honestly for anyone who um, is inspired by pan-Africanist ideals and want to have a platform where they could talk about it. And so, basically, if you're interested in being a part of the group, I'll leave a link below, and I'll further discuss it on other videos in the future. But getting into the subject of today, symbolic victories. So, Dr. King is, for me, he's kind of a conflicting figure. Um, First of all, let me first say that Dr. King is someone who risked his life for Black people, and he's someone who definitely loved Black people. Um, and anyone who's willing to risk their life for us, you have to give them some respect, even if you don't agree with all of their ideologies, even if you don't agree with their way of thinking. You have to at least give respect, because frankly, not too many of our people out here, even the ones who say that they're woke, if you were to threaten them with death, those same people would back down from what they're doing, or they would flee. He was threatened with death. He was threatened with losing everything. And he still had a sincere conviction, and therefore he kept walking out what he wanted to do. However, Dr. King, if we're honest, he unfortunately didn't really delve into a lot of the principles of things like Black nationalism, of the teachings of people who preceded him, such as Marcus Garvey or even Booker T. Washington. And then to describe those different ideologies, Dr. King really fell into the ideology that Black people, for us, in order to correct our issues, we have to appeal to the white power structure to do what they should do. And realistically, they should, give Black people, some type of reparations. They should give Black people some type of help, because they were ones that created this condition that we live in. And so his thing was, we need to appeal to them. We need to protest until they work and do what they need to do until they make things right for Black America, so that we can live equally. And while it sounds good, when you understand class struggle, and if you haven't read things like Communist Manifesto, it's a really good read. And even if you think socialism is blah blah blah, it's a really good read, because it really explains how we as human beings, we are automatically pitted against each other inside of a class struggle. Black people, regardless of how much you're owed from the government, you have to understand that this government is made up of people, and those people are in a class that runs contrary to your class. And so obviously, if you are making demands to this class of people that says, well, you've done this to me, you should do these things to make my life and my situation better, and these people look at what you want for them to do, and that runs contrary to their well-being or to what would be in the best interest of them, those people are never going to fully give in to you. They may give you symbolic victories. They may give you things that are going to make you be quiet. They may give you things that'll make you think, oh, well, we got this. They may give you some civil rights, for example, but they won't give you the economic rights that you want. They might give you a voter rights bill, but they're not going to give you the land that they took from you. So these are all things that basically quell the dissent inside of the Black community, in order to make them empowered to continue doing what they want to do with us. So Dr. King believed that you can appeal to the conscience of these people. As Stokely Carmichael commented on Dr. King, the problem is these people don't really have a conscience when you look at what they've done to our people historically. How do you have a conscience when you take a people from their land and enslave them and make them your animals, essentially, and dehumanize them and rape their wives and kill their men and castrate their men, abuse their children? How do you do that and think that you have a conscience? And even in America today, when you look at what's going on in the prison system, when you look at what's going on in the education system, all of these things are things that are perfectly within the reach of these people to do something about. How do you really think that these people have a conscience? well, even if they do have some type of conscience, understand that they're being motivated by their own class well-being, or as Dr. Amos Wilson would say, by group consciousness. Their group, they're thinking for their group, and they're going to do and act on behalf of their group that to the best of their ability, and they're not going to factor in your group because you run contrary to their group. So, essentially, Dr. King, his method was to ask his oppressor and demand his oppressor to do certain things. People like Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, their philosophy was that we have to do what everyone else is doing. And that is, we have to build ourselves up. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to turn our sight within and focus on what's going on in our community, because they're not ever going to come and help us. Now, it's now 2018. And when you think about how much time has passed and how much has happened from Dr. King, from the time of Dr. King's assassination, I'd be interested to know who, taking an honest look at how Black people turned out, who would honestly say that Dr. King had the correct philosophy when it comes to what Black liberation would be. And again, this is nothing to say about his character or his willingness to sacrifice himself, but it is to say that it's clear that what we needed was to essentially do what every other group is taught and ingrained to do. Any group that comes to America, their mindset is to build for themselves. And they might not say it. They might not say, we're going to do this for the Irish, or we're going to do this for the Jews, or we're going to do this for the Germans. But trust me, they're taught and ingrained for self-preservation. Black people, however, we've been kept in this condition that we're in because we've been taught that self-preservation is not what we need, but we need to look to others to help us. And guess what? It's been, 50 years later, and that has not happened at all. So back to the subject, though, symbolic victories. Dr. King's, I always feel interested to see how many people go out of their way to, do certain things on Dr. King's birthday. For a number of reasons. One, it's very interesting that the United States government chose Dr. King. And let's be very clear, I'm not unaware of the fact that the Dr. King that is portrayed by America is not truly, fully the Dr. King that we know. Or I would say it's not fully an accurate representation of what Dr. King was or what he represented. For example, Dr. King was for the United States paying reparations to Black Americans. But we'll never hear that. We'll always hear the I have a dream speech. I have a dream that Black people and white people can get together and be friends. We'll hear that because that is favorable to the power establishment, but we won't hear the fact that Dr. King actually was calling for the government to give money to Black people to help us to reestablish ourselves economically. So I'm not lost on the fact that Dr. King was more and more, especially towards the end of his life, becoming conscious of the fact that economic rights were essentially our problem. Civil rights were never our problem. Economic rights should always precede civil rights. Remember that for any group. When any group comes to United States, their mentality is, let me get my economic rights first, and what will follow is my civil rights. For example, the Asian community, who has the lowest voter turnout rate, actually is doing economically probably the best, if not one of the best. So how is it that these people who don't, vote really, or don't really use their right to vote, but they're doing fine? Well, they came here with a mentality that we have to build ourselves economically. And after that, our rights will follow. And of course, there are lots of Asian associations and political groups that do advocate for their people. Not to mention, these people oftentimes are very connected to their home country. Nonetheless, Dr. King was chosen because he could be easily whitewashed. And it's interesting. You would think that if we're truly interested in, recognizing prominent black people in America, it's always ironic to me that there's hardly any recognition of Marcus Garvey. And if you don't know this, Marcus Garvey's movement with the UNIA was far more than what Dr. King had. Marcus Garvey had the largest movement of black people in the United States of all time. Yeah, most people don't even know what the UNIA is. They don't know what Marcus Garvey really did. When you talk to most people and say, well, what did Marcus Garvey do? Oh, I think he just wanted to go back to Africa. They have no clue about the philosophies and the opinions of Marcus Garvey. They have no clue about how Marcus Garvey is actually the one who influenced a lot of African revolutionaries in the 60s and the 70s to go for independence, because a lot of those people, for example, Kwame Nkrumah, he came from Ghana to the United States to study, and he studied Marcus Garvey, and he went back to Ghana and actually taught those same philosophies, which is why if you ever look at the Ghanaian flag, it's red, yellow, green, and black. Red, black, and green, of course, if you know Marcus Garvey, that was the color of the Pan-African flag that he created, because he said that black people, we all need to be united under a flag. The only variation for Ghana is that they put yellow in to represent the gold of the country. But Marcus Garvey very much influenced the African revolutionaries and the African independence inside of Africa. And ultimately, all around the world, people were influenced from this one man. Yet, it's interesting that not only does Marcus Garvey never get honored in the American public, but he's hardly known. Most people don't know much about him. Most black people don't know much about him. Most black people don't know what this black man taught. And I should stop saying it's interesting. It's calculated. How calculated is it that we don't know much about Marcus Garvey? Otherwise, black people, we would start learning to look inside and look to how we can help ourselves. Marcus Garvey taught race first. Race first meaning before you get into all these other things, you first have to take care of your black people. We have to put ourselves first. We have to get our own businesses first. We have to work and develop industries for ourselves first. So there's that symbolic nature that the Martin Luther King's Day was essentially it's very calculated that they chose someone who they completely whitewashed and essentially were able to wipe out so many other prominent African people in history. But of course, that's how it works. Now, a lot of black people, even back, Martin Luther King's holiday, I think it came about in the 80s, if I'm correct, and it was a big deal to black people to have a holiday for Martin Luther King. Some people were fighting for it, and it's interesting that they got this and they felt like they accomplished something. This was a symbolic victory, having a holiday. The same way that if the United States does actually put Harriet Tubman on a dollar bill, that would be a symbolic victory. The same way that having a black president who did nothing for black people, but hey, you got to see a black man in office. Good for you. That was a symbolic victory. All of these are symbolic victories. And I'm here to tell you, all of these victories, the white establishment is fine giving them to you because they don't mean anything in truth. What did having Barack Obama be the first black president really do? And you might say, well, at least my children got to see a black man in office. And it's interesting. I forget who said this or wrote it, but someone brought up a really good point. If you're a young black child, I think it was actually Umar Johnson who said this. If you're a young black child and you got to see a black man in office, and a black man be in the most powerful position in the world, truthfully, and yet you see that this same black man was so incapacitated by the racist power structure that he couldn't even do anything for these black people, that he essentially just was there to take stuff from the white people and had to basically take it and not really do much as far as making power moves for black people. How does that inspire you to see a black man being made docile by white supremacy? And I don't think it would inspire me personally. I mean, what am I going for? I can be a black CEO, but hey, I can't do anything that's going to upset these whites. That's essentially what Obama was. He was, oh, I'm the black president, but hey, don't ask me for anything because I have to listen to these white people, and they mean more to me because hey, I know y'all will vote for me regardless, so I have to really listen to them. I would say that's nothing personally, and again, it's all symbolism. Notice how much black people, we are calmed, we are soothed, we are fine with the how things go along in history, as long as we receive the symbolism that makes us feel good. So another instance of this symbolism I want to talk about is some few current events, and one, we'll start with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, called Haiti and Africa shitholes. Obviously racist, Obviously, I mean, I'll say first, I don't understand why anyone is surprised by this. I mean, he already said Haitians and Africans have AIDS, and so this is not surprising. I don't know why people get surprised by certain things, but it's interesting, the symbol of having your president, the president of the United States, if you call that your president, say that African countries and Haitian countries are shitholes, far exceeds the reality of past presidents. And when we look at people like Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, past people who pretended to be your friends, and of course they would never say that, but they did things in those countries that cost people lives, cost them economic well-being, cost them their livelihoods. Yet the symbol, you're caught up on a symbol of someone saying this. Again, trust me, this is not me defending. I personally, I have a beautiful advantage of nowadays. I can really pay attention to politics when I want to, and not get upset, because I realize that really, regardless of if you're Democrat or you're Republican, you are a part of this system, and this system is inherently against me. So I tend not to take one thing personal over the other. But what I have to tell you, I care more about what the Clinton Foundation did to Africa. And if you don't know, look, there's a documentary I think it's called Clinton Cash on YouTube. You can watch it for free. I care more about what they did to Africa, and also Hillary Clinton did under the Obama administration. I care more about that than some words. And that's because I'm not hung up on the symbolism. Anderson Cooper was crying about what Trump said. Did he cry when Hillary Clinton had the Haitian Constitution changed so that what once said that white people couldn't own land inside of Haiti, now they could, and so you have these people coming in to develop Haiti, which basically is neocolonialism. Take the people's resources, basically make the people your slaves. Did he cry for that? Did he cry for all the money that she stole from the Haitian people that was donated? Did he cry for that? Did he cry for all these atrocities that were being done under Obama's watch? Did he cry for the drones? It's so weird to me. People really expect you to buy into their. I'm not gonna say we're fake tears. Maybe he was sincere, but I get so thrown off by our reactionary feelings, and that's really what this comes down to. It's about being reactionary. Black people, it's funny. I was watching a speech with Stokely Carmichael, and I'm probably going to post it on the Facebook page soon. He said, you have the revolutionaries and you have the reactionary. And when you think about our people, you have us who are revolutionary, we're ready to get down to it, we're ready to, forget it all, blah, 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 let's do this. And then you have the people who just react. Most of our people are reactionary. They heard Trump say these things. All of a sudden, they're going on Facebook with these statuses. As a descendant of blah, 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 how I am blah, blah, blah offended and blah, blah, blah. And when you knew this whole time this man was racist, but you're being reactionary. Perfect example of being reactionary, we're going to talk about H&M. You know, I personally do believe that those people were racist for posting that. And even if, let's just say the benefit of the doubt, even if they did not know that putting that photo of the boy, even if, let's say that they weren't intentionally doing it, hypothetically, psychologically, you know that putting a hoodie on a black boy that says coolest monkey in the jungle, you know psychologically what that means. You connect the two psychologically because that's what's been ingrained in you, especially if you're out in Sweden. So I do believe that was racist. However, it's so interesting to see black people so reactionary. I mean, you had people in South Africa. That was upsetting to me. Seeing people in South Africa go to the store and just ransack it and throw things around. And everyone online is like, yeah, that's what you get, H&M. This is South Africa, okay? Let me tell you something about South Africa. These are people who are thrown off their land and pushed into these little ghettos so that the white people or the upper class get to live in the nice part of town, and they basically keep people inside of these areas that are essentially concentration camps. You're going to tear up a H&M store, but you don't want to tear up the white establishment that has you living below the poverty line in these despicable conditions, have you dying and from diseases, has you in violent conflict with one another. You can get more mad at H&M for an ad, ignorant ad, as ignorant as it was, but that could drive you more to do something like that than this whole institution, this whole country that has essentially put you inside of this place where you're living like animals. That's what I'm saying. You're being reactionary. But revolutionary is to maybe not react. I mean, I'll tell you, I react a lot less to things that I would react to before. And the reason is I'm always thinking about what could happen ahead of time. I try to think about, instead of reacting, I try to build. And I wish that more black people would put our focus, instead of on reacting, on building. We need to be on the offense, We've been on the defense all this time, and listen, it hasn't done anything. And if you're waiting for white people to stop offending you, if you're waiting for white people to stop doing things that are wrong to you, and that's when you'll stop reacting to everything, it's never going to happen. Racism is too far ingrained into the psyche of not only the United States. I know a lot of people try to act like Europe is so good, but the whole world. Anywhere that's ever been touched by white supremacy, racism is ingrained in their psyche. So you'll never have a day when things don't happen like what happened with H&M. You'll never have a day when, like the girl, I think her name's Amara La Negra. She's the singer who was on Love and Hip Hop, and she had some lighter-skinned Hispanic guy, basically say that she's not elegant wearing her afro. And this is an African woman who's also Latino. You'll never get to the time where people don't say ignorant stuff like that. I mean, if you're really, my question is to your reactions. What are you getting out of it? Or what do you think you're getting out of it? Are you getting some satisfaction when you see the stocks of H&M go down? Do you not think that these people have other plans to make themselves financially viable? Do you not think that they have other businesses, their money inside of other ventures, to where if H&M goes down, they will be fine? What are you getting out of this? You're going to be fighting this fight forever. You're going to be reacting forever. You're going to be basically the victim of someone else's acts forever. And it's almost like you're a toy that, all you have to do is press this button and we go off. But when we get more on the offense, when we contemplate, when we think, when we're strategic, and we think ahead, and we're thinking about, okay, I get that H&M. What's going on with the prison industrial complex that's, oppressing so many of our black men and black women? What's going on with that? Okay, I see with the whole, oh, you don't like afros, but what happened? What's up with these reparations? I mean, Jewish people, and I always will always laugh at this. Jewish people get reparations from the United States, despite the fact that the United States did not commit World War II, did not commit the atrocities done against Jewish people in World War II. But they get reparations. I mean, Obama, the black president that can't do nothing, y'all, he gave the Jewish people, remember, and this is Obama who said black people, he would not be for reparations for black people, but he would be for education. Um, Obama was for reparations for the Jews in America. And despite the fact that black people have never gotten anything, any type of reformation, any type of oh my gosh, why did I just lose it? We've never gotten reparations, any type of reparations. Yet he was for it for these other people who weren't even the victims of this country. You know, that's what I mean by thinking and acting. And honestly, while not being reactionary, it probably satisfies you less as far as, you know, getting this off your chest, because realistically, racism is a lot to deal with. And I think there is some type of relief that we feel whenever we're able to vocalize with other people who also feel the same thing, who also experience the same thing. And I'm not necessarily saying that people shouldn't, you know, shouldn't say anything about these atrocities. But I'm more so saying, you know, if you really would have to react, I would love you to just walk and chew gum at the same time. Because at the end of the day, what's happening with H&M, they're going to lose money, but guess what? Is that a victory or is that a symbolic victory? What is that doing for black people? Making us feel good. What does making you feel good do when you're dying, you're facing extermination essentially? Nothing. Nothing. And so that is essentially what I wanted to talk about. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And yes, I hope you have a good rest of the week.